I'm joined with Sasha and Suzy of Women's Fight News. And thank you, ladies, for, putting the push out for MMA and boxing with the ladies, because it's important. These girls work hard. They're super interesting. I'll start with you, Suzy. How is everything today, and how you feeling out there?
Yeah, good, and thank you very much for asking us on, because it's great. It's great to be chatting about women's boxing. It's great to be, like you said, pushing it out there and promoting the ladies.
Sasha, what about you? How you feeling today?
Yeah, really good. Really good. And yeah, again, thanks for inviting us on.
I love the interviews. And first of all, we'll start off with this. Where can we find all your content? Because, you ladies are putting out great content, and I want my listeners to know where we could find this great content.
So we've got a main YouTube channel. So that's where all the interviews go on. So that's Women's Fight News on YouTube. But also you can follow Women's Fight News on Twitter and Instagram. But also Sasha has her own handle. So Sasha, you want to say what your handle is to follow you?
Yeah, so Twitter and Instagram is the Sasha Jones on both of them.
I've watched a lot of the shows, listened to a lot of the shows, and it's wonderful content. And talking about fighting in general, I'm so passionate. I'm a nice guy, but I love combat sports. So I'm going to start with you, Suzy. What got you into wanting to start, helping the ladies combat sports movement?
Well, I've liked boxing for a long time. So when I first met my husband, like 15 years ago, he got me into boxing. He was a huge Joe Calzaghe fan, took me to go and see Joe Calzaghe live. And before that, I knew nothing about boxing, nothing about combat sports, nothing. So literally, it was just like suddenly going in, all these thousands in a stadium to watch this boxing event. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. So from then on, I've been a big boxing fan. We've been to Vegas to see Manny Pacquiao. Just loved it, loved the atmosphere. And then it was just the last few years, really, I've been getting into the female side of things. And I've been on, and I started up Women's Fight News because I started getting into it. And I love the stories. That's a huge part for me as well. Not just the fighting, it's the actual fighters and their stories behind why they're getting into fighting, and just them as people. And I find that really interesting. And I've loved getting online, chatting to them, getting to know them.
I'm the same way, and the passion in the UK for fighting is second to none. The production before COVID hit, and the massive crowds, and you feel it on TV, you get goosebumps. And like you said, the stories. And by the way, Joe Calzaghe was an amazing fighter. I mean, he fought so brilliantly, so wonderful. Huge fan of his work. And his father was a great trainer and mentor to him. And that's a rare thing where father and son work like they did, and they really had a great combination. It's an interesting story about Calzaghe too, I'm sure you know about, is that his father really didn't have much experience. He was a jazz musician, and then he trained his son how to fight and fight really well. But no, I get you. It's like you get bitten by the bug. I'll get into my story in a little bit, but Sasha, I want to hear your story. How did you get into fighting? How did you get into the sports world of combat sports?
I was back at home, and Tony Bellew was fighting for his world title at Goodison Park, and obviously, from Liverpool as well. So had to watch it. I think it was my first experience really sitting down and watching boxing, and just loved it. It was the atmosphere, even like you said before, like even when you're watching it on television, the atmosphere was unbelievable. Watching him win, the emotion from him, Eddie Hearn, just amazing. And from that moment on, I started following boxing, trained a little bit, and just love it. And like similar to Suzy as well, like it's the stories. I'm fascinated about like how people everyone gets into boxing in so many different ways. And I think especially we see in women's boxing more so than men's. Not everyone's going through that amateur route. So it's so fascinating to see who's come through the amateur route, the Team GB, or some have come through white collar, some have picked it up in the late 20s. And I find that fascinating, seeing their journeys from the beginning to where they are now. And yeah.
The most interesting people on the planet, in my opinion, because a lot of fighters, like, there's stereotypes that people are going to be a certain way, but they're very funny. They're very unique individuals. They come from, blue collared for the most part. Sometimes they come from high class and all that. And that's great too. They're still fighters. Everyone's a fighter. The thing is, I was telling my wife not too long ago, I'm like, I want to move to the UK because this is where my sport is completely appreciated to the high level it needs to be at, right? I mean, I've been watching boxing. I'm 42 years old. I've been watching boxing since I was about 7 or 8. My story begins. My dad was a huge boxing fan, and he told me the reason why, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is that he says, I love the stories. I love the reason why they fight. And I started watching it. I'm like, this is amazing. Then I saw Holyfield Bow 1, and I was forever taken in. I'm like, this is a metaphor for life. Holyfield just kept going and kept going, kept getting off the mat, kept fighting back. Round 10 of that fight, even though he lost, I was forever a fan. Luckily, I've had the honor to interview him a couple times, and hopefully I'll get him on soon. I know he's got a big assignment coming up. He's going to be back in action on Triller, which was a fun show. Sasha, did you watch that out there?
No, I didn't. I'm not a big fan of the YouTubers fighting, so I decided not to watch that one. Plus, it was on quite late. It was my bedtime at that,
Yeah, the time difference, right? What about you, Suzy? Did you see that?
No, I didn't watch it, but obviously I've heard a lot about it. To be honest, I feel like I've watched it because I've seen so much on social media.
It was interesting to say the least. So, all right, talk about interesting. Before we take a deep dive into other things that I have questions about, Sasha, let me ask you, what have you been doing to pass the time out there? Like, because I'm in America and, it's like kind of like everyone else. We're killing time. We're doing podcasts. We're having fun, staying positive, hanging out with the family, watching your favorite TV show for the millionth time, listening to music, blah, blah, blah. What are you doing out there to keep yourself all sane, really?
It's been so tough. It's been so difficult. I've tried so many different things to keep me functioning, but many walks in all the weathers. I mean, lucky enough now we're getting into slightly better weather because I'm a bit over walking in the rain. But lucky enough, Suzy did obviously ask me to do some interviews for Women's Fight News, so that's been great. That's been a bit of a lifesaver. But yeah, just watching a lot of television, which I don't normally do. A lot of walks, couple of runs, and yeah, that's it really. Hopefully I'll have some more exciting things happening soon.
Yeah, hanging out with the family, the long walks with the dog, which is great. I got a Chihuahua. Do you have any pets?
I have a Jack Russell.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And what's his name?
His name's Woody, but from Toy Story. But he's getting on a bit. His walks are cut short now. We only manage about half an hour, so I have to go out on my own for the rest.
Yeah, my girl is a Polly girl, and I call her Polly Peanuts, and she's a little Chihuahua, and she just wants to walk forever. Like, honestly, which is great because it's great exercise for her. So sometimes we'll go on 45-minute long walks. I come home, I'm like, look at the time. I'm like, wow, what happened? But also what I want to discuss with you, Sasha, is music. What kind of music are you into?
Little bit of everything, really. I'd say big Kings of Leon fan, like a bit of Amy Winehouse, Lady Gaga, just bit of everything. Probably a bit more indie type of music is my thing.
Amy Winehouse was an incredible artist, beautiful singer, beautiful person, and she did, when Tony Bennett invites you to do, a collaborative thing, like you're good. Like Tony Bennett's not just gonna call you up if you suck. Like absolutely. Yeah. What about TV shows? You watching any TV shows right now?
Just binge watching a lot of Netflix. I'm trying to think what we watched last. I like a lot of serial killer stuff and a lot of documentaries. That's my thing. I'm like so obsessed with anything to do with serial killers, murder investigation. That is my thing. So I can't even think of the last one we watched actually, but it would have been something to do with that, definitely.
My wife's always watching like the investigative channel and all this type of stuff. Now, when it comes to certain things, like even though I'm a hardcore boxing and MMA guy and I train and all this kind of stuff, I'm like the guy that watches the horror movies like, oh my God, I can't. I get like, you know what I'm saying? So I'll come in the living room when I wake up in the morning and she's watching something and I'll stop and look at it. I'm like, oh, this is so crazy and sad and intense. Like, look at what they did to this person. And this is awful. You know, it's like a car wreck though. I gotta look at it now. And it could mess you up, but it's interesting. It's interesting, the whole forensics thing. On Netflix, what is it that you're watching?
We've just finished Superstore. So that was okay. That was like different for me, more of a comedy. But I can't think of the last thing we watched actually. We need to find something new. We've like, you know, spent 12 months in lockdown just watching everything on Netflix. So they need to bring some more stuff out for me. I've watched all the documentaries now, ran out of documentaries to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I ran through The Sopranos for the millionth time during this. I'm a big fan of the Transformers on Netflix. That was a really cool animated series. Cobra Kai, obviously. A lot of, you know, old school martial arts movies have been keeping me entertained. Like, and what's great is that my wife watches them with me, you know, and because she gets into it, but she'll break down the plot. She'll be like, this doesn't make any sense. This movie is good and entertaining, but it's cheesy. And then I look at it like a whole different level. I'm like, oh man, you're absolutely right. You know? So Suzy, let me ask you, first of all, what have you been doing to keep yourself entertained? And are you watching any TV shows?
Yeah, so in terms of keeping entertained, I mean, I've got my family, I've got a couple of kids, so I've been doing a little bit of homeschooling, trying to keep sane with them. Doing a lot of running. Running's been a big savior for me, for mental health, like doing a workout in the morning, then going for a run later on. I think that's really kept me sane. And also, like Sasha was saying, doing the interviews have been a massive help just to keep my brain ticking over, to be honest.
Absolutely. That's great for you. Yeah.
And in terms of TV shows, see, I'm not into the whole killer thing myself. I like a bit of sci-fi fantasy. I love Stranger Things, Game of Thrones, anything like that. That's what I like.
Yeah, I mean, the exercise is great. You know, I had the opportunity to go out to Sacramento, actually 60 miles north, because I had to fly in to Sacramento to go to where I was going to train at high altitude elevation in martial arts with a great guy, Adam McKinley. And I'm going to go back out there, and it was a great experience. That helps. And then talking to amazing people like yourselves, it works out so great because it pacifies the time. And then people are like, man, you're just like pumping out shows left and right. I'm like, this is keeping my sanity, because I mean, out here in Vegas, I'm originally from New Jersey, live in Vegas now 5 years. You know, things are opened up, but it's like really restricted and you're inconvenienced a lot. Suzy, let me ask you, are you able to do things, or is it kind of still locked down?
Luckily it's beginning to open up now, and I think because I'm in Wales, whereas
Okay.
Sasha's in England, so
Right.
actually we've got different rules, which is really annoying. So Wales, Scotland, England, different. So at the moment, gyms aren't even opened up here in Wales. So I'm waiting for the gyms to open up. But all the shops are open now. Restaurants and pubs outside are going to start opening up from next week, I believe. So slowly things are going to hopefully start getting a bit more back to normal. And also we're allowed to move around now. Like before, it was like you couldn't drive more than 5 miles. Whereas now we can just drive wherever. So that's a lot better.
Wow, you had some significant restrictions there, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to Jersey to visit family back home, and there are no F's given in the Jersey game. Like, there is no social distancing. There is no, like, they say you're supposed to do certain things, but it was funny. I was at like one of my family members' bars, who is like the owner of the bar. So you'd think he would try to set a good example. And if he's listening right now, I'm sorry, bro. I already called you out on it. You already know about it. So he's just like, no mask, no F's given. And I'm saying to myself, like, and I got mine on because in Vegas, it's like, it's pretty strict still. And, you know, it's inconvenient, but I respect authority. And so I'm like, what? I'm looking at everyone, and they're on top of everyone. And everyone goes outside, has a cigarette, and just like on top. I'm like, you guys are all nuts, you know, like, you know, and I'm like, I tell people, wash your hands, man. I'm like, you're all dirty. Like, what are you doing? You know, like, but it's loosening up over here. You know, it's about time that we get to that point. One thing is, you mentioned working out, going to the gym. I go to the gym, and unfortunately I have to wear a mask. It sucks. It's great to work out, but I mean, after you're running for a while, I mean, Sasha, have you been working out and training with a mask on? What's your thoughts on that if you have?
No, we're quite lucky. I mean, in England, our gyms opened last week, and there's still restrictions, and you have to book in, and you have to do all different things now. But no, mask walking in, mask walking out, but not to train with. I don't think I could do it. I think I'd really, really struggle. I don't mind wearing a mask to go to the shop or to do whatever I need to do, but I don't think I could train. But I've seen quite a few of the boxers who obviously live in America, and they're doing like pad work and things with masks on. And I think I'd struggle with that. But we're quite lucky. Our gyms have opened now, so I've been back in all week, which has been nice. Saves me running. I'm not a big fan of running outside at all. So unless it's sunny.
I tell you what, the running with the mask on, it's okay when you're doing it, kind of, not really, but the best it can be, really, But then you come home and then you feel it. You feel the after effect, like. It's like you feel like a little lackadaisical. Now I'm 42, so I still think I'm in my 20s. So when I work out, I train very hard. And then I come home and I'm like, oh, man, I got bruises and lumps and bumps. I'm like, what am I doing to myself? Because that's the only one way I know how to go. And that's because I'm a fight fan. The inspirations of fighting have stuck with me in every code of conduct of life. So I want to turn it to you, Sasha, again about interviews. The whole process of interviewing is a lot of fun. Do you make bullet points or do you actually script it out? Like what's your approach to interviews?
Yeah, I always try and bullet point, and I try and have an idea of how I would like it to go and how I'd like it to flow. But obviously, it will depend on their responses and how they see the conversation flowing. But and that's the bit I quite like. I like knowing who I'm going to interview if I have a few days, especially to really research them, even if I think I know them because I've seen them box a few times. You always learn so much by watching tons of videos on YouTube and reading as much about them, and obviously having a little scroll through their social media. I think you just learn so much before you even get to interview them. But yeah, I have tons of different pieces of paper around me with bullet points, and I'm trying to sneak over as I'm talking to them and have a little glance. And yeah, that's my approach.
It's beautiful to I do the same approach, and it's beautiful when you fall off the rails a little bit. Sometimes I'm I got this whole thing structured, and you get someone on Kylie Reese was probably one of my favorites that I've ever interviewed, and everyone was like, man, you guys really had a lot of fun. I had all this going on and I vibed their personality, and I was like, oh man, I could hang with this girl. She's incredible. So we did go into boxing, but then we just went on crazy off the rails. And I think we went about an hour in 20 minutes or whatever. And we still network. We're still friends. We still are communicating very heavily. And, I cannot say I've ever had a guest on that I was not happy with. But when you get that guest that really just blows your mind, she had me falling off my chair. I was I couldn't take it, and I had to cover my mouth because I didn't want to laugh too hard, and I couldn't find the mute button on my mic, and I'm like, oh my God, let her go. And so I'm just going like this, and then I was trying to tell her, I'm like, it's not anything I'm feel good, I'm not sick or anything. I'm like, I want you to do your thing. You're great, girl. Keep going, But it's an interesting process, to do interviews. What about you, Suzy? How do you handle interviews or anything that you're doing for social media too? Because that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, I'm the same. I try and research it out first, get some questions written down. But like you say, you don't really know how long it's going to go for. Some people are quite chatty, so you can ask 2 questions, and that takes 40 minutes because they'll talk all around it. Or some people you can ask 20 questions and it's over in 5 minutes. So I try and get a sort of average number of questions down to try and cover all bases. But yeah, and then my attitude is I try and talk as little as possible because I want them to be the ones talking. So that's how I try and approach it as much as possible.
That is a great approach. And what I do is I tell everyone, when you come on the show, it's your show, not mine. I want you to share whatever you want, bring up anything that you want. What I like to do, like the formula, because being a podcaster, or radio host, I've learned a lot over the years, and I went on my own the past 8 months. So I'll keep this short winded, is that I want people to feel like we're having lunch or dinner or some drinks and hanging out and making everything as comfortable as possible. And then you get the greatest results, because sometimes you'll get things from people that you were not expecting to hear. And that's like, wow, like that's a great feeling. And also what's a great feeling is everything that you guys are doing for the ladies and the sport of boxing moving forward. Sasha, let me ask you a question about future fights coming up. You know, with the men or the ladies in mixed martial arts or in boxing, what are you looking forward to now that we're starting to get back to fighting?
It's got to be the Tasha Jonas Katie Taylor fight. I mean, what's that out, like two weeks out or something like that? It's coming up soon. Really, really looking forward to that. Being watching tons of videos, and like Tasha Jonas looks in unbelievable shape. I mean, there's pictures of her today, and she was training, I think, on the pads with Joe the other day, and she looked in unreal condition. So I'm getting even more excited for this, because once again, she's been writ off. Everyone's like, Katie's going to win, Katie's going to win. And yeah, Katie's going to be the favorite, but Tasha showed last time that she's the underdog. She just comes out blazing. So for me, I'm so excited for that one, definitely. And of course, Billy Joe Saunders and Canelo, got to be looking forward to that one as well.
Who do you think is going to win that one?
I think Canelo's going to win, but I think Billy Joe could. I think if he got a knock, he'd have to have a knockout to win. There's no way at all he would win on the scorecards. It just won't happen.
You know, the thing is that Billy Joe's got a very excellent boxing style. He's a boxer. Canelo does have trouble with boxers, right? I mean, we've seen it in the past. Israel Lara, obviously Floyd Mayweather. Now, Canelo has developed a lot. Now, for Billy Joe, like, this is a big fight for him, big opportunity. And I know Canelo looks good. I'm not saying I'm picking Billy Joe here, but there are intangibles to every single fight. Styles makes fights. And, Canelo's been bouncing around weight classes, and that's hard. That's hard to do. I think it's going to be more competitive than most people believe. I do feel Canelo will win. I'll put myself on record to say that. But I can see Canelo going through some significant adversity during that fight. What about you, Suzy? What do you think about that fight, and what fights are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I agree with the Canelo fight. I think I see Canelo winning. However, I do think that if anybody might have a little bit of a key to beating him, it could be Billy Joe with his fast hands, his work rate. So we'll see. I still think Canelo, but I'd like to see Billy Joe maybe do it.
Because Canelo is very explosive, right? He's a very explosive fighter. And the thing is, he learned a lot, I think, from the Mayweather fight. And I got to say, he backs it up, man. Like, he goes in there and he adjusts and adapts to different game plans, even though we know he loves to counterpunch. But when he's had enough, like what he did when he sent Kovalov to hell, like you saw it, he just had enough. He's like, you know what? That's it. Here we go. And that's what I love about certain fighters with passion. Like I had Kelly Pavlik on the show yesterday, and he's just a passionate, amazing guy. And I've interviewed so many great fighters. And that's what I love about the two of you, Suzy and Sasha, is that you guys have so much passion, right? So I'm going to start the question with Sasha here, is that women's boxing, you guys are obviously great for it, that you're helping it, and mixed martial arts as well. What can we do to make it even bigger? I know it's a very tough question. A lot of people ask that question, and it's been pondered a lot. Sasha, what are your thoughts on how we could get it out there better?
Yeah, it is a tough question. I think it needs to be promoted more. I think boxing needs to take a few more risks like other sports have. I come from a tennis background, and tennis took the risk of promoting the women like they do the men, took the risk of giving them equal pay. And as soon as everyone knows they're paid equally, the respect goes up straight away. And I'm not saying it needs to be equal pay straight away, but I think boxing needs to take a few more risks in promoting their fighters, like Katie Taylor. I mean, she's been in a couple of big fights now, and she's still never like main events, which is always a bit of an issue. And I think that's the biggest, because they always talk about equal pay and people don't always want to watch women's boxing, but until it is promoted equally, people won't, because it's not viewed as equal. It's always viewed as less than. And that's the promoter's job. That's a lot of people's jobs in boxing, is to change that perception, because boxing fans won't change their views, especially the dinosaurs who don't believe women should box. You know, to start changing all of that, it really needs to come down to the people who have got control of the money, and put more respect in the women's boxers. You know, Eddie Hearn's always talking very, very highly of Katie Taylor, and he's done a lot for her, but there's still a lot more that needs doing, a lot more pushing. And I think until that happens, we'll kind of be where we are now, where we're seeing unbelievable women's fights like we did the other weekend with Shanna Courtney, Ebony Bridges. But then we'll keep seeing these great fights. The women keep putting themselves out there, taking risks early on in their career, happy to lose that zero, but they're still not really getting paid for it. So yeah, we're talking about women's boxing more, but then we're kind of stopping. There needs to be a push. That's my view.
That is an amazing response to a question that a lot of people ask, and it's a tough one, right? But excuse me, well deserved there with the props, because that breakdown right there is, guys, this is why you should be listening, to Women's Fight News, because they will break it down. They'll drop the science on the sweet science. I'm going to say that right now. So Suzy, let me ask you your opinion about how we could push the women's mixed martial arts and boxing, combat sports in general, forward.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Sasha's broken it down perfectly, but I mean, it's a case of, if you look at people, I mean, so they need to use social media more as well, people, because we're heading that way. Because I mean, you've got an example of Ebony Bridges. Over the last year, she's done amazingly well to self-promote. I mean, she's not got a promoter, and look where she is. I'd say she's probably the most talked about female fighter in the world at the moment in terms of boxing. And she's done that all herself. Now, if the promoters got behind their fighters the way that she's got behind herself, people would be much more known. It's literally just getting those names out there into the public, and letting people know who they are and the characters they are, the people they are. That's why I love doing the interviews as well. Get them known, get people behind them, supporting them, wanting to see their fighters win. So that's what I like, to get to know the people.
Like we said, the stories, you feel like a certain engagement with them, and you could be relatable when you see a fighter, working jobs and then going out there, and then they're, look at like Joe Smith, right? Like he's a construction worker. Then he goes in prize fights, which is incredible. Heather Hardy, I had her on the show and it was amazing. And she's like, pardon me, I have to cook dinner, for my kids, and I got other things going on. And I'm like, no, you're fine. I'm like, talk about the cooking. And that's what we were talking about with podcasts before, is that it's great. It's like, let's talk about what you're making, and then we talked about food and whatever for however long, and we had a great time. And she also shared a lot of information. Same way Mary McGee did. Like, she was just excellent as well. These ladies have great stories. And I can't wait to talk to Amanda Serrano. I mean, look at that resume. Come on, man. Like, you look at that resume, the multiple weight classes, the multiple titles. Who do you know that has done, boxing, mixed martial arts, and pro wrestling?
Yes.
I mean, we're getting like, Tyson Fury might consider that. I think, no, Mayweather didn't do the MMA. So it's like, can you guys come up with anyone that has done that? That's the trifecta. That's like, bang. Like, that's incredible.
No. And she's successful in all of them as well. But she's such a good example of, in boxing, she is a 7-weight world champion, and she is still not, I mean, she is well known to boxing fans, but a 7-weight world champion. She's got a great personality. She's an unbelievable boxer. Like, everyone should know her name, and it's still not done. And that's another, you know, like Suzy was saying, where's the promotion in someone like Amanda Serrano? You know, that's just, you know, I know we all talk about Katie Taylor, but let's be honest, Amanda Serrano has achieved a lot more than Katie Taylor, but we don't hear her name nowhere near often enough. So it's a shame, really.
And she's a great person and a wonderful fighter, you know, and I look forward to every single time she scraps. It's just absolutely incredible. So, all right, talking about other sports, we were mentioning that, you know, Sasha, you did some tennis. Outside of me for martial arts and mixed martial arts and boxing, I recently took up golf, and I'm terrible. Like, I suck. So you play some tennis?
Yeah, I used to when I was younger. I'm a tennis coach now, so definitely can't play tennis anymore. It's amazing how quick you lose all your skills when you become a coach. It's very shocking, actually. But I've also tried golf because I thought, you know, tennis, hand-eye coordination, surely I will be good at it. Oh no, not for me. Not for me. I can't get it like more than 10 yards. So I was like throwing the golf club. I was like, I've had enough. This is not for me.
What I like about golf is the fact that you could actually, it's a sport where you could drink while you play it.
Yeah.
So, you know, we'll go get some beers. And I started, you know, because I also played baseball and stuff like that. So I would just like wind up and just bring up the front foot and just slam this thing. And as a boxer, like, everything's in the back foot. So I had like people on the golf course come up to me. They're like, yo, homie, you're riding dirty. Like, you got to get some form. They're like, yeah, you're hitting the ball to outer space, but it's not the right way to do it. I'm like, I'm having fun. What about you, Suzy? What about you with other sports of interest?
Sports wise, to be honest, it's just a lot of running. I like running in the gym, really. I don't really do any other sports, but I'm a physiotherapist, so I'm quite interested in sort of movement and people doing the sports. So more so than doing it myself, probably.
The psychology of sports is very interesting, especially in fighting. Like, you got to go through so many processes. You know, some of my favorite fighters, I mean, I could go on for days about lists, obviously Evander Holyfield, who I mentioned before, because the intestinal fortitude. Sasha, I'm going to start with you. Who are your favorite fighters, male or females?
Oof, tough question.
Yeah, I asked tough ones.
Yeah. Tyson Fury is definitely up there. Terry Harper, big fan of hers. There's quite a lot, actually, isn't there?
It goes on and on, right?
Josh Warrington, until his loss, that hurt me. Watching that hurt my soul.
That was hard.
Actually,
that was a hard one.
I'll never be able to watch that again, actually. Josh Warrington, Carl Frampton as well, big fan of his, so that made me sad. Now he's retired. There's loads, and you know, obviously, big fan of Amanda Serrano's. Love watching Heather Hardy box. Love. I'm really looking forward to seeing her back in the ring as well.
Yeah, I'm so happy she's coming back. What about you, Suzy?
Yeah. Female wise, I love Clarissa Shields. I'm a huge fan of Clarissa Shields. I just think, because it's funny, because I love come forward fighters. I love all that kind of real sort of in action. Yeah, I absolutely love the way that Clarissa Shields fights, because she's just so good at it. She's just so clean and precise with the shots. I just love that. And actually, I love her as a person as well. I know she gets a lot of stick, but actually, I think she's, for her age and what she's done and how she puts herself across, I think she's actually really, you know, she's good, and she speaks a lot of sense. When obviously on social media we all say a lot of things that we perhaps shouldn't sometimes, but when you actually listen to her in interviews, I think she's really clever, and I think she comes across so wise, and considering everything she's been through. I have a lot of respect for her outside of boxing as well as in boxing. But yeah, there's so many fighters. There's so many fighters that I love. I love, you know, Melissa Hernandez. She's, you know, when I was talking to her, I was buzzing after I talked to her and did an interview with her because of what she's done in the past. You know, she's still there boxing now, and she's been pound for pound in the past. The fights with Jelena. yeah, I love talking to her and hearing about her stories. Again, Heather, I love chatting to Heather and hearing all her stories, and how tough is she? That fight against Amanda Serrano, and she was saying she when I was talking to her, she was saying she doesn't even remember like the first 5 rounds because she got caught so badly in that first round. How tough is she to just keep going? So there's so many fighters I love out there. So many. And obviously Ebony Bridges and Courtney, the fight that's just been on the 10th. I mean, how amazing is that? That's got to be fight of the year contender. That, you know, that was a great fight.
Heather Hardy, I mean, you know, she did MMA and boxing and will continue to box, and we all can't wait for that to happen. I'm mentioning Carissa Shields, and, you know, she'll be doing MMA too, which is wild. I love how these modern day athletes are really pushing themselves. Now, not a lot do, because we have a lot of inactivity in boxing. But the women seem like they're just ready to go, man. Like they're like, hey, you want me in the MMA cage? Well, let's do that. You want me to box? Let's go here and do that. I'm like, fellas, where are you at? You know, like there's a lot of like great boxers, and I'm not gonna, you know, poo-poo on certain names, but we know as fans who those names are. For, you know, the men fighters, is that where you at? Like, I understand COVID and all that kind of stuff, but even if you look at resumes and inactivity over the years and how inconsistent fighters are at being consistently inconsistent, you'll see that there's a pattern here. Some fighters fight once a year, twice a year, and who they fighting? You know, the ladies, they just seem like they want to roll out, you know, and get it in, you know, like they talk about different weight classes and they just want to get it in, man. And so I got to give mad respect to that. You know, Sasha, you had mentioned Tyson Fury, one of the most colorful and amazing fighters ever in boxing.
Yeah. He's I never used to like him, actually. I didn't like a lot of the things he'd said and done. And then I read his book, and obviously you heard about his struggles and his mental health problems. And my opinion definitely changed on him. And seeing his comeback, I think that is one of the most inspiring stories in sport in general, his comeback and where he is now. I just think it's incredible.
Let me tell you both, like, when I get choked up thinking about this, the Deontay Wilder first fight, and he went down, he got up. And then the 12th round, we're watching the fight, me and my wife, because she gets into it too. And we're watching it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like Deontay Wilder just like totally annihilated Tyson Fury there. And he's laying there like nailed to a cross. I get goosebumps thinking about this. He gets up and then he rocks Deontay for the next 2 minutes. And then he comes in for a rematch and just blows him out. And one thing I got to say about Tyson, I can say a lot of things. First of all, I love his outfits. He's very colorful. Like, yeah. The outfits are amazing. His soundbite and dossers and jackers and just unbelievable. But the way he backs himself up, like in terms of like how he says what he's going to do, and he fights really hard, and he's got heart, and he came from the pits of hell. Like, that's what a fighter's supposed to do. And he's a perfect example of it. And he's so interesting as a person, and everything about him is unique. Nobody that size should be able to fight as well as he does, right?
Yeah, and move. The way he can move, it's just unnatural. He shouldn't be able to do it. He's so relaxed, but so fast. His hand speed, everything. He just, like you say, for a guy his size, it just should not be possible. And I think that's what makes it so amazing to watch, because you're in awe of it, thinking this can't be happening.
Absolutely. Suzy, let me ask you a question. You know, the boxing scene overseas is like, let's face facts, like way more booming than it is in America. Why do you think that is? Is it just like you guys have better attention spans than people in America, which you probably do? Like why is it so big in Europe and here it's picked up, but it's not like it is over there?
Do you mean like just the boxing scene generally, or sports generally, or
sports, the passion for the fans have for the sport? Yes.
I don't No, I mean, we've always been like, Britain on the whole has been a massive sports country. Like we get behind all our sports, isn't it? It's like a huge thing in football, rugby. In fact, you name it, darts, anything you can get behind, we get behind. It's just, yeah, it's just an attitude, I guess, that if it's something that you can get competitive about and you know, go down the pub, have a few drinks, and have some fun, and that's what we do, I guess.
I'm so envious of it.
I think in terms of female boxing, I mean, we've got to credit a lot of that, haven't we, with the promotion by Eddie Hearn. Really, he's done that massive push for us over here, I think, really.
You know, I love the shows he puts on for Sky and DAZN, and you could tell he's really passionate about the sport. And he grew up around it, obviously. When he was doing the shows in his backyard, man, that was like killer. I was so thankful. I felt like that saved my life some days. And this is no exaggeration. I'm bored. We're quarantined. We got nothing going on. I'm not working at the time. And there's like no sports happening. So I'm just like, all right, let's watch some fights from Eddie Hearn's backyard. And it was beautiful. And it got me through. I think the thing is, you said, competitiveness, and a lot of people like that competition. I know a lot of people overseas, and they're just very passionate. And over here, like, there are fans, of course there are, and I'm not trying to crap on, you know, us Americans and stuff like that, but there is like a lack of, like, you know, people like wanting to jump into anything and just enjoy it for what it is. Like, the attention span on certain sports has diminished. I don't know why. It's happened way before COVID. A lot of people want to blame COVID for a lot of stuff, but I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I think a lot of just people's attention span, and you guys seem like you hit the nail on the head, Suzy. You know, passionate and competitive. Like, I've played darts with some of y'all, and a couple pints ain't a couple pints, and darts is a serious game. You know, Ricky Hatton used to throw down. I remember him and Manny Pacquiao played one time. That was really funny. I got another question for you, Suzy. Do you think longer rounds for the ladies in boxing will equate to more knockouts?
So I've got mixed feelings about this whole thing. So I ask a lot of the female fighters what their opinions are. And it's really tricky because some of them say that they like the 2 minutes because it just changes the whole dynamic, really, because you've got 2 minutes to get what you're going to get done. Whereas you get 3 minutes, you might be more relaxed into it and actually not get the knockout anyway, because you're sort of taking your time thinking you've got the 3 minutes. It's very tricky. But obviously, if you go into it in the same mentality as the 2 minutes, then there's been a lot of cases where the extra minute would have been helpful and would have resulted in a knockout, definitely. But then also, there's a lot of fighters that, regardless of knockouts, that they're not sure if they want to go for 3 minutes or not, because are they even going to get paid extra? That's a lot of extra minutes, a lot of extra punishment to get no extra pay. But then equally, is it going to be more respect and equal more money long term if you get the 3 minutes? So I think there's still a lot of questions around it. I think it's going to be a case of it will happen. So I think it's a case of, like Sasha was saying about taking risks in boxing. Is it a case of let's just go for it, let's equal what the men do and see what happens? I don't know.
Great explanation. You know, again, both of you, dynamite, you know, breaking down certain things that I think are the obvious questions that, you know, we have a hard time getting answers for. And you guys, you know, you ladies have totally broken down some great, you know, perspective on a lot of things that, you know, will help the women's movement and questions that people have, you know, which is very important. Sasha, what's your thoughts on an extra minute per round in a female fight?
I'm not fussed on it personally. I just think it'll slow the pace right down. And I think what I love about women's boxing is how fast paced it is. I'm not that bothered about knockouts. And I know we all talk about we want to see more knockouts. We don't see it that often in the men's when you're looking at 50-50 fights. You know, so I think if we have more 50-50 fights in women's boxing, that's what we need. And we're seeing more of that. I don't think the extra minute, it definitely won't equate to more pay whatsoever. I don't believe it will. And I just think it'll slow the pace down. And I think then it will change the dynamic and it won't be as entertaining. So for me, and again, relate back to tennis, it's equal pay in tennis, but the women play less sets than men. There's a scientific reason behind it. And I'm sure there's a scientific reason behind why women do 2 minutes. Like, this isn't just plucked from thin air. Like, there will be a reason behind it. So for me, no, it's not something I personally would want to see. If anything was to change, I'd rather 12 rounds, but all at 2 minutes. That's the one that, that's what I would like to see.
Wow, you ladies are absolute dynamite. This is why I want to pick your brains on a number of topics and throw some pretty solid questions out there in terms of like not being difficult to be difficult, but because I was interested in getting your perspective, because a lot of these questions are not easily fielded, and the both of you just like, wow. So before we wrap up, I just want to again remind our listeners how to follow you real quick. I'm just going to say the show that we just did right now will air on iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, Google, all that stuff everywhere. And I'll send you guys links in about an hour or so from now when they publish. And I cannot thank you enough, both of you, Suzy and Sasha, for coming on and just really kicking ass, like straight up. A lot of people are going to be very happy to hear this perspective, and it's like hardcore and it's deep down, and that's what was great about this show. So again, we'll start with you, Suzy. Where could we find you, and how can we find Women's Fight News on all media platforms?
Okay, so literally on YouTube it is just Women's Fight News. So you type it in, it should come up. And if you find us, please subscribe. And I hope you like the content, because we've got quite a lot. We're getting more and more out. We've got quite a lot on there already from both me and Sasha. And then also I'm on Twitter and Instagram, Women's Fight News. I think it's something like Women's Fight New 1 is my actual handle on Twitter. And then it's just Women's Fight News on Instagram. So yeah, follow me on all of it if you can.
Awesome. What about you, Sasha?
Yeah, my Twitter and Instagram are both the Sasha Jones.
Isn't that nice and easy? Right?
Yeah.
Like I always forget like my own.
No, well, I couldn't have just Sasha Jones. And then I think the number went up to like 3002. And I was like, no, I'm not having that. So I've put the at the beginning. There you go. There's the one and only. Can't forget it.
Whenever I'm on a radio show as a guest, they'll ask me, where can we find you? I'm like, in Vegas. They're like, no, where can we find you? I'm like, oh, on the social media. And I'm like, babe, what's my Twitter? Like, I think it's Boxing Music John or something like that. I'm like, okay, just type in my name. I'm like, don't try to do that because my last name is so crazy. Like, good luck with that. So I got to get my game better, because I'm always like caught off guard. Like when someone asks me that question, I'm like, I'm on Facebook. Like, I don't know what to do, But hey, you ladies were phenomenal. I can't wait to have you back again. And I really appreciate you guys coming on. And I hope you had a great time today, because I had a wonderful blast of a time. And I really appreciate it. So like I said, we'll see you all soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really enjoyed being on.
I'm sorry.
You'll have to come on with us as well.
Of course I would. What are you doing in the next 15 minutes? I'm a Jersey guy, so I'm a talker. You can tell. I'll see you guys soon. Anytime. Thank you for that invite. I would love to come on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.